Here we go. It's time for another sprint zone. This one's for 8/12, 2025, and we're going to begin with the Ron camera. Yes, I do have footage, but I figured I would just try something a little different, and we'll get a chance to see what it looks like from a different rider's perspective. And, we're in a 2x pace line. It looks pretty reasonable. It's starting to get a little bit raggedy as we get closer to the sprint zone, but for now, it is okay. It's good that Eric there and Alisa pretty much riding handlebar to handlebar, which is like to see. And there's a rider in front. I think that's Felix with no one next to them. And it's proper that the proper spacing is given where Alisa's not half wheeling, even though she could, and is giving up some draft. Back to my camera, and we'll throw the Ron camera up in the upper left so we can see what's going on there. So we're almost to the sprint zone. And of course, I would like to thank Ron, of course, for his footage and telemetry. And it's going to be a good day. Little different perspective there. I should probably play a little bit more with some of the camera features just to make these things look a little more interesting. Thought I'd throw that in there. And if I were like a real YouTuber, I'd say, tell me what you think about that. Put something in the comments. Tell me that you like it. But we're not expecting any of that. So let's get the show on the road. Heading into the sprint zone. And there's this truck that comes up, and I think he's trying to crop dust us, but it's really weak. Take a look at this. Tell me what you think. That little weak, like, cloud of smoke. Anybody that owns a diesel, you can tell me whether or not that was just how they operate. Onto the sprint zone. So Greg goes by me, and I'm like, oh, I hope we're not going to have a repeat of, like, a few weeks ago where Greg goes to the front and, like, gets in my way. In any case, he is a good draft, and at this point, I am content to sit behind him. And you can see none of the heads of state, with the exception of like Wolfgang at the front, want to do anything. Everyone's biding their time. Jocularity going on. You can see Eric and Alisa there, just chatting, having a good time. There's Felix tapping out a nice rhythm, and everybody else. Greg looking strong there, and Isla, his beautiful wife, is just ahead of him. And this is kind of unusual. Like, Isla is normally not one to hang out in the melee just because some of these things can get a little bit sketchy. You get a sketchy rider in there and you don't know what happens. Good shot of Brennan there. Good shot of Isla fading back as we look at the rest of the crew. Ron camera looks good and nothing is happened yet. But we're looking at my wattage. 30-second wattage, a bit over 200, and Ron's also 30-second, like 220. So the game is beginning to be afoot. Brennan right behind me, and we had a little conversation about his goals on the sprint zone. He likes to just do the whole thing above his FTP, not too concerned with what's going on around him. And there we go, the true heads of state. Dr. John Kraft, aka JC. And when JC goes to the front, it's game on. Even if he's at 3/4 power, it's still game on. And I should have asked him for telemetry. And next time. And here we go. So JC goes up the front, he looks back, and no one wants to go. So like Dean was behind him, and I'm not certain why he just didn't follow. He falls a little bit late. JC looks back and like, where is everybody? And nobody was there. It's some gamesmanship. And it's really no fun if JC just goes off the front and finishes on his own, because he could easily do that, without one of the other supers here. And that would be either Byron or Ben Nelson. Probably not any chance of bringing him back. And even if those two are here, it could be challenging if he gets any kind of gap. Looking rearward, things are starting to string out just a little bit. Slight of an echelon there. And Ron's got a good view of what is happening closer up there. Power-wise, 30-second power, mine 140 something, Ron's 176. So the draft is in fact working. And it must be, and it is, slight headwind with it coming off of our right shoulder. Hence some of the slight echelon happening there. Small gap in front of Greg there to Joel. And Greg is a good draft. But I would much rather be slightly closer up because the bigger group is even a bigger draft. Like once the big man leaves a little bit of a gap, some of the efficiency of the draft is in fact lost. Everyone behind, Steve looking good in the orange, and I'm looking at his kit. Like, his jersey is kind of cupping up by the shoulders. I don't know if he needs to talk to his tailor or look at the fit there, but that's some good wattage just like being bled off, especially if I can see it in this. So there's Greg here leaving a slight bit of gap again. And I'm eyeing this up as at some point I think I'm going to need to go around this, because if we get like separated, if it's go time, this is one place that I definitely don't want to be. So JC looks like he's backing off a little bit, coming back into the fold. And yeah, Greg wants no part of being this close. I'm guessing that he wants more draft sitting behind, and I am happy to be closer to the pointy end of the stick. Looks like, I think it's Wolfgang might be out there. Yeah, it is Wolfgang. You can see that in the Ron cam. Ron's second wheel, looking strong there. So let's see, Ron's putting out what, 240, 50 watts for 30 second. I'm only down at 180 or so. So you can see, once again illustrated, it is not that much of it's not an advantage to be second or even third wheel, because you're bleeding off watts, helping everybody else out. But someone's got to do it. And if you want to make certain that you are where the action is, you know, sometimes a token needs to be paid. But anyhow, Wolfgang just hammering out at the front. Slow cadence, mashing away. Speed only 20 miles an hour. And this is a testament to some of the wind that's actually out there. Ron finally taking over and looking at his wattage creeping up there. 240, 230-ish. So he's doing a little bit of work. Slight bit of downhill here. And even though it doesn't really look like it, this slight grade here is in fact a selection point. Danny rolling through, Dean rolling through, and it looks like the group is starting to get organized. And this is what we would do, in fact, before the supers existed. So Wolfgang's feeling pretty frisky here. He goes through, but he goes through hard, and I see this as a dangerous move at this point. If Wolfgang gets a gap with somebody, there could be a problem. Good shot of Danny with the trademark stand up and close the gap. And Wolfgang is going hard up there. You know, and I'm looking at Wolfgang's kit. It doesn't really fit that well. I think he might look at his tailor too, or gain some more weight. Dean looking strong behind me, and he was able to maintain contact. I believe he's in the third position at this point. I am right behind the leader, and I'm feeling good. But you're looking at my wattage, my 30-second power, 260, 270. It's starting to drop a little bit, but that little acceleration up that little grade took a little bit out of me. There's the wiggle of the elbow, and my heart rate, 173. Yeah, I'm pretty much at LT or AT, you know, and I never really took a test to see exactly where my anaerobic or lactate threshold was. So I'm going to kind of use those things interchangeably, but just to say I'm close to my limit. So at this point, I was like, okay, I checked my power. I was doing like 180 or something like that. I'm not going to go super hard. I need to have my heart rate come back down a little bit. But I still want to keep people honest, and I still want to do what I need to do. Looking at Ron's 30-second down to 138. So I know he's resting nicely back there. Thank you, Dean, for taking over on this one. And then Danny following through, keeping everything tight. And there goes Ron, making certain to stay near the front end of the action. Joel coming through, and nice imprint of his phone back there. Yeah, it'd be interesting if somebody do a maybe Dylan Johnson an aerodynamic thing of what it looks like to have the phone in your back pocket. What does that do to your aerodynamics? Front pocket, side pocket, rear pocket, on the left, whatever. Anyway, me playing with the camera, looking at a different angle. Hit that like button if you like what you see. Yeah. Anyway, I'm digressing. So there's a good shot of JC here. Yep. He is looking like he's ready to pounce out there in the wind, not looking for any help. And this is a dangerous move. You know, him moving up through the field. Strongman at the front, pretty much the heads of state are starting to gather. Dean looks like Ben Miller, Tony, JC, Felix coming through right behind JC, because he knows if JC's going, he needs to go. I'm in a good position here. And Ron out front, 30-second power, 340. So Ron is definitely hitting it hard here. And it might be difficult if, in fact, JC goes for it for him to maintain contact. Looking rearward, Greg was still there. A good shot of Jonathan back there. Elisa coming through strongly on my left. Looking really strong. Her season has been amazing this year, especially despite some of the challenges that she's faced this year. Steve looking strong next to her. Good formation. He's looking to see whether or not he needs to go to the front, and he easily glides to the front. Not certain how much work he plans on doing, but it looks like he plans to be near the action. Ron still up front, 30-second power, 3:16, and I don't know how long he's been out there. I might need to figure out how to grab longer power numbers, but the telemetry that comes with the Garmin's is that in that schema is the 30-second. In any case, it's go time, and it is JC going to the front, working hard. Felix on his wheel. Dean quick to take up chase. It looks like Elisa quick to be on Dane's wheel, and Dean wiggles the elbow. No moss. Tony comes through. Ben Miller comes through, and there I go through. Steve is behind me going through. So my 30-second power looks like 3:13, 3:16, and I am trying to stay in there. Looks good, but the two leaders are up the road. Curtis finally makes contact with me, as I do not believe he has seen any action at the front this yet, so he is reasonably fresh. I think we had a conversation and like Mondays or sometimes his workout days, so he's not as fresh. Elisa wiggles the elbow, and now it is my turn to try to maintain contact here. So it looks like, I think that's like Felix and JC up the front, and here we have the final best of the rest coming through, and I am in the top 10. That was good. I enjoyed that one. Good work, Ron. You put it down out there. You threw it down. There was some serious work there. I probably would have made some other people come through a little bit. But that being said, you're getting the work done. You're going to be getting stronger. Some of the wheel suckers, well, their egos might be stroked, but for what that is and a cup of 50 cents, it might get you to have a cup of coffee. Much better to be strong and fit. So well done, Ron. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. I was happy to be there. That was fun. Until next time, peace out, everyone. And a good time was had by all. Luke, you are my son. All right. Anyway, guys, a little bit of look at the cool down here as we bid adieu to everyone, and to all a good night.